Welcome to Evolved Sun. I'm your host, Matt Finch, and in this episode you're going to be learning wisdom for navigating the 3D end times, end of the third density cycle of 75,000 years, how to navigate these times of war and suffering and anger and resentment and separation, eroding trust, the viciousness of the opposing media outlets for political parties, and how to navigate these times with an open heart by continuing to see the Creator in everyone and everything, how to find the love in the moment, and other ways of responding to catalyst, this increased catalyst in these end 3D times. And so today I have two very recent Quo channelings by LL Research. LL Research has been channeling Quo for decades, and Quo is a higher density group of aligned service to others beings. Quo is part of the Confederation of Planets in the service of the Infinite Creator, and they include themselves in the Brothers and Sisters of Sorrow. So a lot of wanderers and starseeds on Earth that have found Quo have really resonated with the Quo wisdom and love and compassion. Some people prefer Ra, some people prefer Quo, some people prefer Thoth the Atlantean or Hermes Trismegistus, some people prefer Buddha, and I prefer a combination of many different teachers alive today, from the past, or even in higher density realms, incarnate or in time-space, not physically incarnate, but in the inner planes. I'm taking pieces from two different channelings and not reading the whole thing, just what pertains to this topic. The first channeling's from December 10th of 2022, and we're going to cover the first part on experiences of increased catalyst during the 3D end times and how to respond to that catalyst, what the catalyst is, and then a portion of their November 10th, 2022 conscious channeling of Quo, specifically the portion where Quo talks about news media and trustworthy sources during the 3D end times. I think you're really going to love this episode and get a lot of value from it, and with that being said, let's get right into it. Start of channeling. Jim channeling. I am Quo and am with this instrument. We greet each of you in the love and in the light of the one infinite Creator who exists in all things and all people. It is our great honor to be called to your circle of seeking today, to speak to those queries which you have for us, that give us the opportunity to share some of our path of seeking with you. For we are, as you, seekers of truth, and we would suggest that, as we are like you, we are not infallible on what we have to say. We would ask that you use your own discrimination to determine whether the words and concepts we share with you have value in your spiritual journey at this time. If there are any that do not, we would ask you to lay them aside and think not a second thought about them, and use only those words and concepts that speak to your heart, that speak to your journey that you are on now. With that disclaimer in favor that we ask, we may speak more freely, knowing that you will use your discrimination, as it is always a good thing to do. At this time, we would ask if there's a query with which we may begin. M1 says, some students of the Law of One met this week, and all of us are currently struggling in multiple aspects of life, including spirituality. Is there something significant about the timing of this, and what can we do to better persevere and get through this time of catalyst? I am Quo and am aware of your query, my sister. You speak of the time of the ending of the third density illusion on planet Earth. 75,000 years have passed, and there has been a great deal of seeking the truth of one's nature, of one's journey, and how to pursue that seeking of truth. At this time, there is much of what you call catalyst in which we would agree is, shall we say, grist for the mill, food for growth. Much catalyst that seems to divide one against another, to confuse many concepts and thoughts about the value of different philosophies and ways of being. Much of anger that has as its basis the inability to accept another point of view, another way of looking upon the purpose of life and the way to live it. All of this catalyst and so much more that deals with seeming differences between one and another is that kind of experience that one can expect upon a planet such as your Earth, as you call it, that has so many people from so many other third density planets who have failed to make the graduation upon those planets, and have chosen this planet as the one in which they shall live and move and have their being and seek once again. To be able to open the heart in unconditional love in the majority of time and experiences that they share with each other. This is most difficult for most of the people on Earth at this time, for the differences seem pronounced. there does not seem to be a unifying philosophy that can illustrate the unity of the creation. The creation is made by the power of love, the creation that is formed as light. So all entities are actually made of love and light and are part of the one creator. That this basic principle has not been apprehended makes the catalyst at this time stronger than ever, more difficult than ever, to be able to utilize as food for spiritual growth. For in general, most people at previous times within this incarnational pattern of Earth had been able to utilize their catalyst more successfully, for it was not as intense, not as widespread. These latter years have created a situation in which, if it were possible for all the catalysts on Earth at this time to be used in a meaningful fashion, that the entire planet itself and all this population could move forward into the fourth density of love and understanding. That is the amount of catalyst that would, shall we say, do the trick. But as you know, this is not at present seeming to occur, because there is so much division, so much confusion, so much anger, so much separation. For each individual seeker of truth, we would recommend that you utilize your personal catalyst in your daily round of activities to become able to move forward on your own spiritual journey of opening your heart in unconditional love. As you open your heart in unconditional love by the use of this catalyst, you allow a portion of the river of love that has created the entire universe to move through you and out into your daily round of activities so that you can share that love, that light that is within all. And you allow it to move with you as you interact with your brothers and sisters on planet Earth, knowing that they may not have the same success as you, but you can share with them the love that is the product of using your personal catalyst, not concerning yourself with the mass hysteria and hypnotism on planet Earth that makes people think they are separate from one another. Your own catalyst is that which is helpful to you. You need not take on the catalyst of the world around you. That can only be affected by doing your own inner spiritual work, using your catalyst as food for growth, becoming able to shine with the light and love of the one infinite creator, and then be able to move into the fourth density of love and understanding, hoping that your brothers and sisters upon the earth will be able at some point to do the same with their own catalyst. For this is the great work. This is the spiritual journey. This is what all have come to do, and you can play your part as you have done so well. In another conscious channeling session from November of 2022, Austin asks, I have a question, quote, it has become increasingly difficult to understand in our social environment what constitutes a trustworthy source of information, and figuring out how to determine the truth of what's happening in the world, particularly as it pertains to outlets known as news media. I was wondering if you could recommend a particular news outlet that is the most trustworthy for us. We are those known to you as Quo, and we laugh at the conclusion of this question, for we felt it was on a great track before taking that well-designed turn to, as we spoke previously, emulate conditions that you as instruments may encounter. Now, we would be glad to let you know which cable news network is among our favorites and most unbiased, reliable sources of information, but we fear it may upset some of your population. So, we will refrain from the remark that we, of course, speak in jest. Not only do we have no such thing as favorite, but we could not identify for you which source of information contains the least distortion in the news offering, the least agenda, the least corrupting influence from political and economic power, etc. To do so would be to interfere, not only in the seeker's individual journey by doing the learning for them, but to interfere in the planetary game and its outcome, which can only be discovered and chosen by your peoples, not by us who do not live and operate in a body upon the physical plane within the limitations and gifts of the third density experience. We will note, however, that quarter of human activity which you call the news, whether it be via that which is known to you as social media, legacy news, the television, or that news which spreads by word of mouth through your cultures, is a vital organ and aspect of the individual and collective movement through third density. As an organ, if you may see it that way, it is something of the whole's ability to make a sense of itself, to understand and interpret the events of the world. Even more so, It may be seen as analogous to the faculty of attention within the self, for as this instrument was recently reading in a book, the experience of consciousness within the third density plane can be likened to being in an immensely, impossibly large, darkened warehouse where the self roams only with a flashlight, shining that light of attention onto that shelf there or that doorway over there, and so forth, illuminating only a portion of the experience of the mind at any one time through the spotlight of the attention, and not often successfully interpreting what is being seen, given the lack of holistic overview of that which is being taken in. The news media operates much like this attention on a collective level. What is it that the light of attention is being shined upon? What is being revealed? Is where that light shined a function of inquiry of a spiritual evolutionary nature? Or is it a function of increasing profit and, as you say, clicks? Is that light shown in order to conduct social engineering upon your peoples? And so forth. These are some questions the seeker may use in discerning the veracity of any particular given source of information, including our own. We would conclude with empathy for your plight, as you are inundated in a sea of conflicting information where intentionally biased sources of information may be, through their careful manipulation, understood to be sharing truth, whereas the more, shall we say, neutral and dispassionate sources may be understood oppositely. It is a challenge, to say the least, for any of your peoples, whether of a strong intellectual or intuitive slant, to understand what is really happening within any given dynamic or situation. Trust is a glue which keeps a society coherent and capable of making sense of itself, in its environment, in its desires and values. And as that erodes on a societal and institutional level, then fragmentation follows. And your peoples have not been known to navigate fragmentation with the heart open. We would, in closing, encourage the ever-valuable faculties of patience and the light touch in sifting through information, whatever the source may be, knowing that something of value can be found from a multitude of voices, even those one does not agree with, or those which do not confirm for one automatically the worldview with which they are comfortable. All right, and thanks so much for listening. That concludes this episode. I hope you got a lot of value from it. Please take good care of yourself, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.